think my story is unique, and you'll be surprised by how it turns out. My name is Jake, I'm 34, and until recently I'd had married for 7 years, have 2 beautiful kids, and a comfortable home in the suburbs. Everything seemed fine on CD, or just chose to ignore. Sarah and I met in college, and it was one of those whirlwind romances that you think on arted our life together. She's always been the more outgoing one, working as a real estate agent while I work in it. H doubted her. I trusted her completely. Maybe I was too trusting. We hired a babysitter, Alex, a couple of years ago when our young perfect fit for our family. He's great with the kids, always polite, and just an all-around good guy, or so I thought. Saw Iant, and he came highly recommended. I didn't think twice about it. Things started to feel off a few months ago. Saw became more frequent. I chalked it up to the stress of her job, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't like she'd been drinking, which was unusual for her. Our sex life also took a hit. She always had an excuse, too tired, not in the mood, or the kids were keeping her busy. Ted. The breaking point came last Friday. I usually work until 6 p.m., but that day I managed to finish a big project here. I thought maybe we could have a family night, order some pizza, and watch a movie. When I pulled into the driveway to be there, but something felt off. The house was too quiet when I walked in. I made my way through the house, as I approached the living room. I heard muffled voices and laughter. The closer I got, the clearer it became that it was all them on the couch, way too close for comfort. My heart stopped when I saw them kiss. It wasn't just a peck, it W-ing. My wife, the mother of my children, was cheating on me with our babysitter. I wanted to burst in and confront. I took out my phone and recorded a bit of what I saw, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. That night I kept replaying the scene in my head, wondering how long it had been going on, and what I'd done to deserve this. Needed time to figure out what to do next. Should I confront her? Should I leave? My mind was racing with a million Q-youth. So here I am, sharing my story with you all, hoping for some advice and maybe a bit of support. After that night, G and me to act normal, but I needed more information before I could confront Sarah. I had no idea how long this had needed, plus a part of me was curious about how far she'd go with her lies and deception. The next morning, I pretended Ed Sarah on the cheek like I always did. She smiled at me, that same smile I used to love, and it took all my willpower. Over the next few days, I started paying more attention to Sarah's behavior. I noticed she was on her phone a lot. She'd just brush it off saying it was work-related. I knew better, but I played along. I started checking her phone. She'd delete all her messages and calls with Alex. I decided to get a bit more tech-savvy and installed a spy app on to all her texts, call logs, and even her location. I felt a pang of guilt doing it, but I needed to know the truth. Sure, Lex, all of them confirming my worst fears. They'd been seeing each other for months. Meeting up whenever they say messages was like pouring salt on an open wound. They talked about how much they enjoyed being together, how clueless. Sarah was a completely different person in those texts, someone I didn't recognize. Instead of confronting her right around, I wanted revenge, but more than that, I wanted to make sure she understood the gravity of her betrayal. I won me. One night while Sarah was out with friends, I did some digging and found out that Alex had a bit of a checkered saint. Nothing serious, but enough to raise some eyebrows. I figured if I could gather enough dirt on him, I could hit him, I could find. I saved all the messages and call logs, took screenshots, and even recorded a few of their phone conversations. I was reached out to a friend of mine who worked in law enforcement, just to get some advice on how to handle things. I got, but I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I wasn't going to be the victim here. I was going to take control what they did. For now, I kept my cool around Sarah, pretending everything was fine. I knew the time for confrontat. I wanted to catch them off guard, just like they had done to me. It was a week after my initial discovery, and I had gat dead exactly how I wanted to play it out. I spent countless nights lying awake, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge to the fact that I knew everything. One evening, Sarah mentioned she had to work late. I knew it was another excuses house for the weekend. She seemed relieved and agreed without hesitation. I packed up the kids and headed out, until I saw Alex's car pull up in front of our house. My blood boiled, but I kept my cool. I knew this was the perfect opportunity to put my plan into motion. With Sarah, few hidden cameras around the living room and bedroom. It wasn't something I ever thought I'd do, but desperate evidence of her betrayal. That night, I kept an eye on the camera feeds through my phone. It was like watching a orgy, and eventually moving to our bedroom was almost more than I could bear. I recorded everything, making sure I had reviewed the footage, my hands trembling with rage. Sarah came home early, cheerful and completely unaware of what I had on her. It took all my self-control not to game to ensure she faced the full consequences. I continued to gather evidence over the next few days. Recording became. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to destroy the life she built on lies. The following week, Sarah, couple of days, perfect. I kissed her goodbye, wishing her a safe trip, and the moment she left I got to work. I called IH wasn't far from the truth. I spent the day making copies of all the recordings, printing out the incriminating messages, and organizing everything to act normally, which was increasingly difficult. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman who had shattered my H. The day came when I was ready to confront her. I waited until the kids were at school, ensuring they wouldn't be our own table, queued up the video and waited for Sarah to come home. She walked in, smiling as she set her purse down older than I intended. She looked puzzled, but did as I asked. I hit play on the video, and her expression changed from confusion to horror. Stammered, her face draining of color. "This," I said, gesturing to the laptop, "is the end of our marriage." She started to explain. "No," I interrupted, standing up and pacing the room. "You don't get to explain. I've seen enough. I've hear fool out of me in my own home." Tears streamed down her face, but I felt no sympathy. "I trusted you, Sarah. I gave why, and this is how you repay me." She sobbed, trying to find the right words, but there were none that could undo the D. I said, my voice breaking. "I'm filing for divorce. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You need to pack your things and leave," but I didn't waver. "Think about the kids, Jake. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it. You should have thought I've destroyed this family, and I won't let you continue to hurt us. Pack your things and go. Now." With that, I left the R. As I walked out of the house, I felt a mix of pain and relief. This was just the beginning of a long, painful journey, but my life. My focus turned to Alex. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this unscathed. He had inserted himself in nuances of his actions. First, I did a little digging into Alex's life. He was a college student with a clean record aside from all apartment. Knowing his routine and background helped me plan my next move. I decided to hit him where it was. I compiled all the evidence I had of their affair, the videos, the text messages, and the incriminating photos. I saved EOPs stored safely. One evening, I drove to Alex's apartment. My hands shook with anger as I knocked on his door. W saw me. "Jake, what are you doing here?" he stammered, clearly nervous. "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him in room and sat down, glaring at him. "Sit." He sat down across from me, his face pale. "Look, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean," I scoffed. "Didn't mean for it to happen. You've been screwing my wife for months. Don't insult me with your apology. What's going to happen? You're going to listen, and you're going to do exactly as I say. If you don't, I'll make sure Eve led out one of the USB drives and tossed it onto the table. On that drive is everything. Videos, texts, pictures. I've got LL release it all to your college, your professors, your family, and every potential employer I can find. Alex's eyes widen avity of the situation. What do you want from me? First, I said, leaning forward, you're going to quit your job as our babysitter. Effective IM contact Sarah again. Understood. He nodded vigorously. Yes, I understand. Good. Second, you're going to write a let now, but one day they will. You owe them that much. Alex swallowed hard and nodded again. I'll do it, I promise. I've done. Tell them you've been involved in inappropriate conduct and need to step back from your responsibility. Ned even paler, but he didn't argue. He knew he had no other choice. I'll tell them. I stood up, towering over him. Remember, Alex, I've got copies of Ever Any Trouble. I'll destroy you. Do you understand? He nodded, trembling. I understand. I won't do anything. I swear. I leaked enough to heal the wounds Sarah and Alex had inflicted. But it was a start. I had taken control of the situation, and next day, I received an email from Alex. It was a scanned copy of the letter he had written to my children, filled with Edith, but it was something. He also informed me that he had resigned from his job and contacted his college, admitting to lightly tempered, it was time to face the inevitable divorcing Sarah. I knew this would be a long, grueling process, but Aldrin, I had already consulted with a divorce lawyer and gathered all the evidence of Sarah's infidelity to support my mix of emotions. There was anger, of course, but also a profound sadness. Despite everything, she had been my pa had shared, but the betrayal had shattered our marriage beyond repair, and there was no going back. I chose to serve her the PA witnessed the confrontation. Sarah was in the kitchen sipping her coffee when I walked in with the documents in hand. Oaked up, her eyes wary. What is it, Jake? I placed the papers on the table. These are divorce papers. I'm filing for Devo. Ached for the papers with trembling hands. Jake, please, can't we talk about this? We can work through it. I shook my you betrayed me, and you betrayed our family. This is the only way forward. Tears welled up in her eyes as she read Igor out a custody arrangement that's best for them, I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. They deserve stab NG we can provide together. Sarah sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I'm so sorry, Jake. I never meant for it to go spite everything. Sorry doesn't change what happened. We need to do what's right for the kids and ourselves. Over TCE. We agreed to joint custody of the kids, with them spending weekdays with Sarah and weekends with me. The house fairest solution. One afternoon, as I was packing up my things, my daughter Emily walked into the room. She was OEU packing, she asked, her big brown eyes filled with confusion. I knelt down to her level and took her small hand. Different houses from now on, but you'll still see both of us, and we both love you very much. Her eyes filled with tear. But why, Daddy? Why can't you and Mommy stay together? I struggled to find the right words. Sometimes grown-ups, okay. We're still a family, just in a different way. As I held her, my heart broke all over again. The impact of Sarah's BD, our innocent children who had no part in this mess. It fueled my determination to create a stable, loving environment. E-Day. Sarah and I signed the final divorce papers was surreal. We sat in a sterile conference room, our lawyers by OU. Each signature felt like a nail in the coffin of our marriage. When it was over, Sarah looked at me with red-rimmed EYU confined peace. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. There was no more room for anger or blame. Only a hollow ing, a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The chapter of my life with Sarah was officially closed, and it was time to look daunting task of rebuilding my life from the ground up. As I drove away, I allowed myself to shed a few tears. Not for Sarah, but for the life we had once dreamed of, now forever lost. But I also felt a glimmer of hope. I had served why ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. One step at a time I would move forward, stronger and wiser, for the worst was behind me. Little did I know Sarah wasn't done with her schemes. She was furious about the divorce and and she was determined to make my life as miserable as possible. A few weeks after the divorce, strange things saint, I received a call from my boss informing me that someone had anonymously accused me of misconduct at work. It was a stressful and humiliating experience, but fortunately my colleagues and superiors knew me well enough to tease me. She would tell them lies about me, painting me as the villain who destroyed our family. Emily and Jason, I should have to ask, "Daddy, did you really make Mummy cry because you don't love her anymore?" Emily asked, won her tightly, my heart aching. "Emily, sweetheart, I love you and Jason more than anything in the world. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are too big to fix, but that doesn't mean I don't love you or your mom. It's the damage was done. The kids were caught in the crossfire, and it broke my heart to see them struggle with the situ." He contested the divorce settlement, claiming she deserved more than what was agreed upon. She dragged me back the original settlement. It was a small victory, but it came at the cost of more stress and legal fees. The final straw, CA, alleging that I was an unfit father. The accusations were horrifying and completely false, but they prompted an investigation. CPS visited my home, into a nightmare. I couldn't believe Sarah would stoop so low, but I should have known better. She was desperate, and Vina Dow over my life. One evening after putting the kids to bed, I sat down with my lawyer, Laura, who had become a TR, I asked, my voice filled with frustration and exhaustion. Laura sighed, her expression sympathetic. "Jake, we need to document everything. Every lie, every false report, every attempt she makes to manipulate the situation. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case will be." I nodded, determined to fight back. "I can't let her keep Dua the next few weeks." I meticulously documented everything. I kept a journal of every interaction with Sarah, every NSE report she made. I also installed security cameras around my house to capture any attempts she might make to Ira, and handed me a note. "Mummy said to give this to you." I opened the note, my anger boiling as I read Sarah's VNG to take full custody of the kids and ruin my life. It was the final piece of evidence I needed. With my lawyer's help, I filed for a restraining order against Sarah. And the manipulation of our children. The judge took one look at the mountain of evidence and granted the restraint-vised visits. It was a hard-fought victory, but it brought a sense of relief. Sarah's attempts to sabotage my life were fin-ding. In the aftermath, I had a long talk with Emily and Jason, explaining things in terms they could understand. Grown-ups have to make difficult decisions to keep everyone safe and happy. Slowly but surely things began to improve. The kids adjusted to the new normal, and I focused on being the best fat therapist to help process everything I had been through. One evening, as I was tucking Emily into bed, she looked up at Kay now. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart, things are going to be okay. We're going on door." I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and while the road ahead was still uncertain, I knew we were all stronger than before. Just when I thought things were finally settling down, life threw another curveball my way. It hard on a project when I received a call from the principal of Emily's school. My heart sank as I answered, fearing the were me to the school immediately. "There's been an incident involving Emily." Panic surged through me. "Is she okay?" "What SS this in person? Please come as soon as you can." I rushed to the school, my mind racing with possibilities, when our eyes red from crying. Next to her was a stern-looking woman I didn't recognize. "Mr. Miller, This is Miss Daniels from Child Protective Service reported something very troubling today. I knelt down in front of Emily, trying to stay calm. Sweetheart, what's going to mean to make trouble? I just told them what Mommy said. What did Mommy say? I asked gently. My heart-breaking tea let her see us more. She'll tell everyone that you hurt us. The room spun as her words sank in. Sarah was threatened in surge of anger but forced myself to stay composed for Emily's sake. Principal Thompson and Miss Daniels exchanged a grim look. Mr. Miller, based on Emily's statement, we need to take investigation. I nodded, feeling helpless and furious. I understand. Please do whatever you need to ensure my child. The CPS interviewed Sarah, who of course denied everything, painting herself as the victim. Emily's words, however, were her had said. During this tumultuous time, I kept a close eye on the kids, making sure they felt safe and loved. The Centrong for them. Then, just as things seemed to be spiraling out of control, an unexpected ally emerged. Sarah's sister. We had always been cordial but never particularly close. Out of the blue, she reached out to me. Jake, can we talk? What's going on? It's about Sarah. I've been worried about her behavior lately, and I think you need to know some. She had noticed Sarah's erratic behavior and her growing obsession with getting back at me. Jenna had also found M to go to extreme lengths to win custody of the kids, including fabricating evidence and manipulating Emily. I can't stand, a nurse said, her eyes filled with concern. I want to help. I'll testify if I have to. Her words were a lifeline. With Jenna's testimony and the mounting evidence, T granted me full custody of the kids. With Sarah's visitation rights severely limited and supervised, Sarah was furious, caught up with her. It was a bittersweet victory. While I was relieved to have my children safe and with me, it was heroism and deceit. Life slowly began to return to a new normal. Emily and Jason thrived under the stable environment part of our support system. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Emily looked up at me with a smile. Daddy, I'm glad we're all together, yes, as I hugged her. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you both so much. Months passed, and life began to settle into a new to find a new sense of normalcy. I had even started dating again, cautiously optimistic about the future. But just bore my way. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and I decided to clean out the garage. It was something I'd been put in organized. As I sifted through old boxes and dusty shelves, I came across an old shoebox tucked away in the corner. Curious, IOU letters were innocent enough, old love notes between Sarah and me from our early days, but as I dug deeper, I found time our marriage started to fall apart. They were from someone named Mark. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read on, describing secret meetings and plans for a future together. He talked about how he couldn't wait for Sarah to leave. One letter in particular stood out. It was dated just a few weeks before I discovered Sarah's affair with Alex. Mark wrote about their new beginning. My heart pounded as I realized Sarah had been seeing Mark long before she got involved. Had been living a double life for years. The affair with Alex was just the tip of the iceberg. She had been deceiving him while pretending everything was fine. Feeling a mix of anger and betrayal all over again, I continued to dig through. Inside was a diamond ring, clearly an engagement ring meant for Sarah. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. Sarah trying to process everything. The lies, the deceit. It was all too much. I had thought the worst was behind me. Booty Sarah about this, even if it meant dredging up the past. Later that afternoon, I called Sarah and asked her to come. She arrived. She looked nervous, sensing the seriousness in my voice. Jake, what's going on? She asked, standing in THTChen table and laid out the letters in the ring. I found these in the garage today. Care to explain? Her face went pale as she saw the items. She sat down slowly, her heat truth for once. I demanded, my voice steady but cold. You've been lying to me for years, Sarah. Not just with Alex RT and new life with him. Were you ever going to tell me? Tears streamed down her face, but I felt no sympathy. Yes, I felt trapped. But things didn't work out with him. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. I had already ruined everything. You ruined our family, Sarah, I said, my voice breaking. You made me feel like I was planning your escape. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Jake. I know I can't undo the past, but please believe apologies, I replied, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. I've moved on, and I'm building a new life for my actions. Sarah nodded, tears still streaming down her face. I understand. I just hope one day you can find it in you. I don't know if I can, I said honestly, but I know one thing. I won't let your betrayal define me. I'm going to keep moving a weight lift off my shoulders. The past was painful, but it was finally behind me. I had uncovered the full extent of truly move on.